Here we're going to look at a quantitative variable, and I have many to choose from. I'm going to start with age. So this is that About You survey, which here I'm calling average person. Let's say I want to analyze the age column. So I'm just going to make a copy of that, put in a new tab, paste it in. And the data is highlighted. So right away I could ask Google to make a chart. So I'm going to insert a chart here. And here I can see I have ages from around 1 or 2, interesting, up to around 60. So there are some ages that are incorrect in here that aren't real ages. So let's delete that. Actually, we can leave it in there. And let's just inspect the data. So to inspect it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click back on the data column. And I'm going to go to Data, Sort Range, and I want to do Advanced. And the reason for that is I want to keep the word age at the top. So I'm going to say it has a header row. Header is called age, and I want to sort what's underneath that, ascending, smallest to largest. And I can see somebody entered accidentally 2 as an age, so that's not possible for one of my classes. I'm just going to delete that number. That's called scrubbing the data. And notice Google updated the histogram for me here. Let's zoom in on that just a little bit. Now, when Google makes a histogram, we'll get into what a histogram is. What it's doing is it's counting, and notice these numbers down here are kind of awkward. 15 to 17.14 to 19.29. We're going to clean that up a little bit. So again, the program guesses at how to distribute the numbers across the bottom from the smallest number, which is above 15, to the largest number, which is at most 60. And when you first make a chart, you're going to get this edit menu to the right here, and it picked a histogram. If Google doesn't pick a histogram when you select a quantitative variable, then just look for histogram. If it's not suggested, then scroll down until you see histogram, and then select it. And then Google will guess at the smallest number, the largest number. That usually gets right, but then sometimes it does some weird interval in between. So to clean the interval up, we customize the histogram. So Google guessed at about 2. Now usually for a histogram you want between 6 and 20 columns, and here we have a lot, but it doesn't look like 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21. Okay, so that's too many. So I'm going to go for, let's try 5. That's better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 columns, which is a nice number of columns. If there's too many columns, the graph's not very useful. If there's too few columns, again, it's not going to be very useful. So when we make a histogram, we want to have between 6 and 20 columns or categories. And when Google counts these, the 15 to 20 means anything that was 15 and up to but not including 20 gets counted here. The next column is starting at 20 but not including 25. So if somebody was exactly 25 years old, they'd end up in the third column. Pretty good start on this. The title is kind of lame. Histogram of age. Age of what? At the bottom, age is okay, but what's this column on the left mean? So we're going to clean up the titles next. And this would be ages of Gary's math students. And then the bottom axis is okay, but the vertical axis is missing. We need a title there. What? 100 what? 50 what? Okay, well, a histogram is a count of the numbers between, say, 15 and 19.9. So this is a count. A count of what? Well, students or people. So I'm just going to say number of people. Now, technically, these numbers here are frequencies. So for example, the frequency of people that were 15 years or older up to, but not including 20, looks like to be about 110. But most people aren't used to the word frequency, so a more human readable title here would be number of people instead of frequency of people, or just frequency. So really bad would be to have no label there. Slightly better would be to have the word frequency, but my mom would say, what frequency? What's frequency? Frequency of what? So frequency is true, but kind of lame. So number of people or number of students would be a better one, right? It's a count. And if you just called it count of, that's kind of lame too. We usually don't say that in regular language when we're speaking. Now, I chose a width of 5 here, but there is no best width. Somebody might say, well, we need 10 columns. Okay, if somebody needed 10 columns, then they would have to do something different than 5. So often what we do when we're trying to design a histogram is make some calculations. So let's get some summary statistics. And summary statistics we would want to know are the minimum number and the maximum number when designing a histogram. And I can see the min is 16, but just in case I didn't sort it right, I'm going to use the minimum command. So equals, start typing, and then click on the command you want, and then highlight the data. In this case, I can highlight the whole column. Yep, min is 16, and then equals, start typing max, select max, and then highlight the data, close your parentheses, 58. So then considering the range of values that we have, there isn't a formula for range. We just have to do the max. So equals, click on the max, subtract the min. So we have a range of 42. So if somebody said, well, I want 10 columns, 42 divided by 10 would be 4.2. So that means I'd want the width to be about 4. So if I go back to edit this chart, I can go to customize histogram. And when I hit the arrow, 4 isn't an option, but that's okay. I can type anything I want. So I could just type the number 4, and then that should give me a histogram with 10 columns. Ooh, ended up being 12 columns. So again, it's close, but not exact. If I wanted exactly 10, I would have to do something like 4.2 or 4.5. Let's try 4.2, but then I get these wonky numbers at the bottom. 4.5, and again, 15 to 19.5 years old. That's kind of weird, don't like it. So is there a best histogram? The answer is no, there's just many options. Somebody might decide, well, I just want to go by tens, like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and so on. So if somebody wanted a histogram like that, we would make the bucket size 10. Now this starts at 15, which is awkward. So then we would have to go down and adjust the horizontal axis to start at 10 instead. So now I can go people that are in their teens, people in their 20s, people in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Now this has 5 columns, which I usually don't like, but it's broken down by decade, which is kind of cool. So this would be an all right histogram because we're looking at decades of ages. Students that take Gary's math classes in their 20s, most common age for a college student, even at community college. So again, histogram, there is no best one, you just have options. I like using a histogram builder like Google because I can quickly play around and find a histogram. So I think I'm going to go back and get rid of the min. I liked the 15 that Google picked there. And I'm going to go back to the histogram and make the bucket size 5. I thought that was a pretty nice one. So again, there is no best histogram. There's many options. You just have to decide on one. Things that help you decide is usually we want a nice width for the column. Sometimes that's called the bucket width or the bin width. And when you first make a histogram in something like Google or even Excel, it's going to pick some crappy number with some weird decimals, and you never want that. So you're always going to have to adjust whatever the computer picked for a bin or bucket width if it picked automatically, always. All right, that's it. Have a good day. Do good math.